Hello, friends, and welcome back to Zero Click Marketing, the show about how marketing influence happens before the click. If you're new here, quick orientation. So in episode 1, we talked about how the clicks lie. Platforms like Google are hoarding traffic, and the problem with dark social, and how referral traffic gets incorrectly shown as direct traffic in Google Analytics. In episode 2, I laid out the core framework for what zero-click marketing actually is. So if this is your first episode, you might want to start with episode 2. That one explains the whole model. Today, I want to answer a very practical question. Where does zero-click marketing actually happen? Because once you understand the concept, the next question is obvious. Okay, where should I actually be doing this? Zero-click marketing works best in environments where people can get value without leaving the platform. Places where someone can understand your idea, learn something useful, or form an opinion about your brand without clicking a link. The platforms love this. The algorithms reward it. And increasingly, users expect it. So let's talk about the environments where this happens most often. Environment 1, social feeds. This is the most obvious place. Think LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, X. These feeds are designed for native consumption. Platforms want people to stay inside the feed, so they reward content that delivers value right there. That's why long LinkedIn posts often outperform link posts. That's why TikTok creators explain things directly in the video. And that's why threads summarize ideas instead of just linking out to a blog. You're not sending people somewhere else. You're delivering the value right there. And if people find that valuable, they remember you, they follow you, they trust you. Then later, when they're ready to buy something or hire someone or sign up for a product, they search for you directly. Environment 2, video platforms. The second place this happens a lot is on video. YouTube is a great example. Someone can watch a 10-minute explanation and learn everything they need without ever clicking a link. TikTok is even more extreme. People search TikTok for product reviews, tutorials, recommendations, and, unfortunately, news, and they get the answer directly in the video. Again, influence without the click. Now, a lot of marketers worry that sending referral traffic to YouTube is somehow bad for the algorithm. That's not really the right way to think about it. The better takeaway is this. External traffic is not bad traffic. It's just often different traffic. If someone clicks over from a newsletter, a LinkedIn post, or an embed on your website, they may not behave like a native YouTube viewer. They might watch for less time. They might bounce faster. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't send people to YouTube. It just means you should judge traffic by source. External traffic can be great for awareness and audience building, but if you want YouTube to keep recommending your content inside YouTube, the video still has to foster that kind of binge watching once users get there. Environment 3, communities. Places like Reddit, Slack groups, Discord communities, WhatsApp group chats. In these spaces, the valuable thing isn't traffic, it's conversation. People reference brands, tools, and creators all the time. Sometimes they link, often they don't. Someone might say, oh yeah, I learned that from Amanda's post, or SparkToro has really great research on this. And those mentions shape decisions, even though no click happened. Plus, even if they did, you most likely can't see it, especially in the case of Slack and WhatsApp, dark social. Environment 4, AI answers. So this is our new environment. When someone asks ChatGPT or Claude for recommendations, they often get an answer without ever visiting the original sources. AI summarizes the information, it mentions brands, it cites ideas, and that shapes what people believe and what they eventually choose. That's why in episode 3, when I talked with Rand Fishkin, we discussed AI visibility, whether it's feasible for brands to track mentions in AI. Spoiler, it's feasible. You may want to listen to episode 3 next. AI answers, that's another form of influence. And again, influence without the click. If you zoom out, there's a pattern across all of these environments. Zero-click marketing works best where people consume information natively, platforms discourage outbound links, and value can be delivered instantly. That's the internet we're living in now. And honestly, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, I want to make this really concrete with 3 examples so you walk away with a clear sense of what zero-click marketing looks like in the wild. So example 1. So this is an example of a totally new category, ultrasonic knives. So this is my friend Scott Heimendinger. He's an inventor and frankly, one of the coolest people ever. Scott is the guy who helped bring sous vide cooking to home cooks. The tech already existed, but he helped shrink it down and make it accessible enough that normal people like you and me could actually use in our kitchens. He recently did something similar with ultrasonic blades. Commercial ultrasonic blades already exist. They're used in industrial settings for things like slicing bread evenly before it gets packaged and shipped out to grocery stores. Scott took that underlying technology and turned it into something much more accessible, a chef's knife that you can actually have on your kitchen counter. During launch week, he published a roughly 10-minute YouTube video fully explaining the product, how the technology works, why it matters, and what problem it solves. And that's zero-click marketing, because the persuasion is happening inside the video itself. You don't need to click to the website to understand how the knife works. The website matters for sales, obviously, but the understanding and the desire get built before someone ever gets there. The result? That video got roughly 250,000 views in about 1 week, and the product sold out of pre-orders in around 60 days. And honestly, it's really, really cool, and it's a total game changer for things like slicing roasts, legs of ham, and stubbornly hard vegetables like sweet potatoes. So that's a brand new category, a weird, technical, unfamiliar product, and the explanation itself became the marketing. All right, example 2, a highly competitive category, makeup. So my second example is Erica Taylor, a makeup artist I found on TikTok years ago. She does makeup tutorials and beauty product recommendations, but what made her stand out to me was 2 things. First, her content is fast, no fluff. She gets right into the tutorial, and it only takes like 60 or even 20 seconds. Second, she has a very clear audience. Women in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s who are realizing that the makeup techniques they learned as teenagers don't always work the same way on a 45-year-old face. Now, that's a strong point of view. That is audience specificity, and that's part of why it works. Her zero-click marketing channels are TikTok and Instagram, where she has a massive following. You can get a ton of value from her content without ever leaving those platforms. You can learn the techniques, understand the products, and trust her expertise right there. If you want longer content, or if you want to just search through her library, then that's when her YouTube channel becomes useful. But that core influence happens on platform. That's zero-click marketing too. And the last example is me, because you know I always have receipts. For me, zero-click marketing is literally this podcast and the ecosystem around it. Last Friday, I stumbled upon Christopher Penn's analysis of LinkedIn engineering sources. It's a giant document about how LinkedIn's algorithm works. I recorded a short 7-minute reaction episode on Monday and posted it on LinkedIn with a very short explainer. The next day, I published a longer blog post, something like 2,000 words, where I dove a lot deeper, and then I also published another LinkedIn post with some nuggets from the report. Oh, and by the way, I embedded that 7-minute podcast episode in that blog post. Each one of those assets could be consumed on its own. You didn't need to read my blog post to get value from the LinkedIn post. You didn't need to listen to the podcast to appreciate the blog post. You didn't need all of it to get something useful. But of course, it's better if you do. That's the whole point. Each asset creates standalone value, but together, they create momentum. That's zero-click marketing. And next week, I'm going to talk about this with my friend Brendan Hufford. Brendan used to focus heavily on SEO-driven content marketing, but over time, he shifted toward a much more audience-driven approach. We're going to talk about how he made that shift, and we'll also walk through some of his very real zero-click marketing case studies. So if you're wondering what this looks like in practice, especially if you come from a more traditional SEO or content background, that episode will be a really good one. Before I wrap up, one small request. If you're enjoying the show, please consider leaving a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does help the show reach more marketers. And also, selfishly, it helps convince podcast platforms that I am a serious and legitimate broadcaster and not just someone talking into a microphone in my home office with Lego bricks scattered in the background. Which, to be clear, is exactly what's happening. All right, friends, that's it for today. Next episode, Brendan Hufford on audience-driven marketing and zero-click case studies. And until then, remember, the click might be disappearing, but influence isn't.